Begin the Gemara on the last line of Pei Tes Samid Beis. Gemara continues with the halachas of Lesachsem Shar B'dishay, the isser of muzzling the cow when it threshes and does the work of disha. Ton Rabbana, we learned in Abraisa Porois Hamerachsais Betvua. When you have cows that are threading over the grain. And Rashi explains this is not the regular malacha of disha when they're threshing. What we're talking about over here is, for example, when you have the barley that was already soaked in water, and after it was soaked in water, the kernels, it was dried in the oven, and then after that, there's still another peel that's on it, that the cows tread on it to remove those peels. But it's not the disha that the Torah talks about. And also, v'hadosha is betruma umaiser, or the cows that are threshing the kernels the way the threshing is done before, but it's already truma and maiser. Even though usually truma and maiser is separated only later when there's a gemar malacha, but over here this person was makdim, he already separated the trumas and maisers when it was still in the stalks. So in both of these cases, ein oivim mishum baltachsen. If you muzzle the cow, you're not oivim baltachsen. And Rashi here says the reason is because the Torah says lesachsem shor b'dishoy, and dishoy stam dayesh, stam threshing is not this activity that's done later after you want to remove the peels. And also, it's tam, it's not truma and maisers. That's usually later when it says dogam and agayrin. So so therefore here you're not over. Aval, nevertheless, mipnei maris ha'ayin, but because of the fact that people shouldn't say that it looks like this person is muzzling while it's threshing, maybe bol moisei amin, bring a fistful of that min that it's threshing, v'taylo la betraskel in shebepiyah, and you could hang it in a basket near its mouth so it could be eating from that min. Rab Shimon ben Yochai says it doesn't have to be from that min. Maybe kashinim. You could bring kashinim, which is some kind of animal feed. V'taylo, and you hang it for the animal to eat. Shaha kashinim yofis lam and the kashinim are the best feed that the animal eats. So if you could bring other things that the animal does not eat well, does not enjoy, then that's not going to be good. It has to be something like kashinim, which is good for the animal. But the Gemara asks a question from another Braise that says regarding the truma and the maiser opposite. So the Braise begins the same. Pares hamerachsais betvua, the cows that are treading over the tvua that, like I said before, it was already soaked and here just to remove the peel. Ein oivim mishum baltachsim. So the issa baltachsim does not apply here. Va'adoshes betruma o maiser. But if they're threshing the grain that the truma and maiser, that this is already truma and maiser, oiver mishum baltachsim. So you will be over on baltachsim. Okay, now this is the stira here, which Gemara is going to focus on. So there's a stira here regarding trumas and maisers, if you're over on baltachsim or not. The Gemara continues and says, "V'nochri hadosh beparosay shel Yisrael." A guy that's taking the cow of a yid and he's threshing with it. So Rashi here says that he's threshing with it in his tvua, the guy's tvua, and the yid is telling him, "Go, you can use my cow and go and thresh your tvua," and he muzzles the cow. The yid that's giving him this cow to go and thresh with his tvua is not over baltachsim. On the other hand, the Yisrael hadosh beparasa shel nachri, a yid that's threshing his tvua and he's using the cow of a guy, over mishum baltachsim. So he is over on the isser of baltachsim. Okay, now the Gemara focuses on, as I mentioned, the truma and the maiser, kashye, truma, kashye, maiser, a maiser. We have a contradiction here regarding the tvua that's already truma and maiser. If the animal is threshing it, are you oivim baltachsim or not? So the Gemara is going to give a few answers here for this contradiction. So first the Gemara says, bishloime truma atrume loy kashye. The contradiction regarding truma is not a question. Because kan betruma, in the brayse that it says that you're not over baltachsim, it's talking about actual truma. So this is truma min ha-Torah, and therefore, as Rashi said before, it's not the stam dayish that the Torah was talking about. So there's no baltachsim. And kan begidule truma. In the second brayse, it's talking about when a person took the kernels of tvua, of truma that is, and he replanted it, and it grew from it. Now, what grows from the seeds or the kernels of truma, only midrabanan is a truma. Min ha-Torah, it's not truma. That's why the second Braisa is saying it's only Truma with the Rabbanon, so there is a Isser of Baltachsim. That's the answer for Truma. Elo, Meiser, a Meiser, Kashe, the contradiction of Meiser still remains a question. If you want to say and answer the same answer. Meiser, a Meiser, Namile Kashe, the contradiction regarding Meiser is not a question either, because I could say the same like we said for Truma. Kam be Meiser, if it's Meiser itself, then there's no baltachsim, and kan bigedule meiser. But if it's only what grew from these kernels of meiser, so then you would think maybe we could say this is meiser midrabanan, and therefore it's coming to teach that there will be baltachsim. But the Gemara says you can't say that answer here. Bishleime gidule trume. When it comes to what grew from trume, so there's a trume midrabanan. So you can say that the Bryce is coming to say that there won't be a issa of baltachsim. Elo gidule meiser, but if you take meiser and you replant it and it grows from it, chulininu. It's complete and total chulin. As we learned in the Mishnah, that nan gidule tevel, if you take untithed produce and you replant it, or the gidule meiser, or you take meiser and you replant it and it grows from it, or meiser sheni that is, you take from meiser sheni and you replant it, chulin. It's a total chulin. So there's no reason for the Braisa to come and say that there's no issa of baltachsim here. So the Gemara says we have to answer the stira of the Braises regarding meiser differently. Like kashya, it's not a stira. Ha b'meiser rishain. In the Braisa where it says that there will be a issa of baltachsim is because it's meiser rishain, and meiser rishain has to go to the Levi or to the Kayin or to the Levi. It depends on what the chatchila. The in of meiser rishain was that they would give it to the just a second. That it should be given to the Levi. But then later on, they said, give it to the Kayin. Akapanim, Ma'aseh Rishon, once you give it to the Levi, it is total chulin. I mean, he can use it for what he wants. So therefore, if you're threshing on it, Ya'ivam Baltachsim. And ha b'Ma'aseh Sheni. The Braisa that says you're not Ya'ivam Baltachsim is Ma'aseh Sheni. Ma'aseh Sheni, you can't eat wherever you want. You have to bring it up to Yerushalayim. So therefore, it's not Dishoy. It's not the regular like Sachsim Shoy B'Dishoy, since you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. One answer. Another answer. Both Braises are talking about the Ma'aseh Sheni, which is the Ma'aseh that's brought to Yerushalayim. But v'loi kashya, there's no contradiction here. It's two different opinions. Ha Rab Meir and Ha Rab Yehuda. There's two opinions about the status of Ma'aseh Sheni according to Rab Meir and according to Rab Yehuda. Ha Rab Meir Damar. According to Rab Meir's opinion, he says that Ma'aser or Ma'aser Sheni Mom Gavayahu. Ma'aser Sheni is not considered to be yours. It's not owned by you. You can't use Ma'aser Sheni to be Mekadesh Isha with it. It's Magma Gavaya, and therefore the Eibishter says what you have to do with it. It belongs to him, and you have to bring it and eat it in Yerushalayim. So therefore, you're not over only Sachsim, because the Torah says that Sachsim Shor B'di Shoy. Right, so in the beginning of the sugya, Rashi said that the reason why Truma and Meiser is excluded is because the Stam Dayish is not Truma and Meiser. Here, according to the answer the Gemara is saying now, the point is that it's not Dishoy, and so it's Mom and Gavoya, so it's not yours. And ha Rabbi Yehuda, the other brayso that says that you are over is going according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Amma Ma'aser Sheni, Mom and you too. The Ma'aser Sheni is yours. The Torah tells you have to eat it in Yerushalayim, but it still belongs to you. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can be Mekadesh issue with it. Now the Gemara just clarifies what it said here, that you're threshing the kernels that are Truma and Ma'aser. How do they become Truma and Ma'aser? Usually you don't separate Truma and Ma'aser at this point. So the Gemara says, hey Chidami, what's the case over here that it's already Truma and Ma'aser at this point? That he gave the Truma and Ma'aser earlier when it was still Shibalim and the stalks, even though that's not the time to give, but if you do separate, then the Truma and Ma'aser takes effect. Okay. Now the Gemara asks another question over here on what we just said. According to Rabbi Yehuda, so the person, Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's mom and hedyet, and therefore the animal is threshing, and the Isser of Leisachsem applies, and therefore the animal could be eating from this Ma'aser Sheni that it's threshing. But the Gemara asks on that, Rabbi Yehuda, but even according to Rabbi Yehuda, the only place where you're allowed to eat the Ma'aser Sheni is in the walls of Yerushalayim. So if you're allowed to eat only from the walls of Yerushalayim, so you shouldn't allow the animal to be consuming and eating from the Ma'aser Sheni when it's threshing outside Yerushalayim. Just like the Isser applies regarding a person, it's no less regarding an animal that it shouldn't be eating over here. Answers the Gemara, you're right. It was threshing inside of Yerushalayim, inside the wall, which is called Beis Pagi. Beis Pagi is the outskirts of Yerushalayim that they added to the city of Yerushalayim. They included it in the city of Yerushalayim. So that's where the threshing was, inside Yerushalayim. The Gemara gives another answer to the contradiction regarding Meiser, whether there is a Isser of Leisachsim or not. So we can answer, Kashi, it's not a contradiction. Kam Meiser Vadai. If it's a Meiser that you separated from produce that there's definitely, it wasn't yet separated, so then that's a Meiser Menatayre, so there's no Leisachsim. Kam Meiser Demai. But the Maisa that's being separated from the Mai, which was a Takonim, the Rabbanon, the produce that comes from an Amaretz, and many of them were not careful in separating the Maiser, so there, since this is only a Chiyav Midrabanon, therefore here Leisachsim, it does apply. So now the Gemara says, if that's the case, Hashtad Asas Lahachi, if you're answering this for Maiser, that it depends if it's from Maiser Vadai or Maiser Demai, so Truma Naimilakashi, you could say the same answer for the contradiction regarding Truma. Kam Trumas Vadai and Kam Trumas Demai. That the difference is, if it's Trumas Vadai, then there's no Leisachsaim. If there's Trumas Demai, it's only Truma Derabanan, so the Isser of Leisachsaim still applies. But the Gemara says, no, you can't apply the answer regarding Truma. This idea that Chachamim instituted that for Maisres, when it comes from Amaretz, you have to separate Maiser, that exists, yeah. But Elo Trumas Demai Mi Ikke. To say that Chachamim instituted that from the Mai, the produce from Amaretz, you have to separate Trume, there's no such a thing. Because about Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Af hu bitulas avidui, Rav Yechanim Zakai was mevatel saying the vidui, and once in 3 years by Pesach time, you say that you biate kodesh min habayis, removed and gave all the maisres according to the way you're supposed to. So he was mevatel that you shouldn't say this, because after the times of Ezra, he changed and gave a knas to the Leviim that they don't receive their maisres. You give it instead to the Kohen. So you can't say v'gam nesati leLevi. So he was mevatel this confession, this video that you say that you did the mitzvah. And also v'gazar al admai. He decreed the gzeira of demai to separate maisres again. And the reason is l'fi sheshalach b'chol gvul Yisrael. He sent to see amongst all the boundaries where Yidden are living in Eretz Yisrael. V'ra and he saw shalahoyim afrishin el truma gedayla. The only thing that everyone was careful with was truma gedayla. Bulvat. So, but by Maisres, they were not careful. So we clearly see here in this Braisa that Truma Gedayla, there's no union of separating Truma for Demai. Elo, so the Gemara says, we can give another answer. The Gemara already before answered the stira for Truma. The Gemara says, Elo loy kashya, I can answer and say as follows, that Kan betrumas Maiser Vadai and Kan betrumas Maiser Demai. If you want to say a similar answer to what it said by Maiser for Trume, so maybe the Braises that was speaking about Trume wasn't speaking about Trume, it was speaking about Trumas Maiser, which is when a Levi gets his Maiseres, he then has to separate a tenth from that and give it to the Kohen. So the Trumas Maiser, that's something where the Amaratzim were not careful with this, and therefore you could give the answer and say that for Trumas Maiser Vadai, that's Trumas Maiser Menatayre, so there's no Isser of Leisachsim Sher B'Dishoy, it's not Dishoy. But for the Trumas Maiser Demai, this is only Midrabanon, so Menatayr is considered to be yours, and therefore the Isra of Leisachsaim does apply. The Shaila was asked from Rav Sheshes regarding the Isra of Leisachsaim. The animal, if you allow it to eat while it's threshing, it's not good for the animal. It eats and it's matrezes. It causes the animal diarrhea. So demahu. What's the halacha here? Are you allowed to muzzle the animal? What's the suffix? Do I say mishum demaila lahu? The reason why the Torah says don't muzzle the animal is because it's good for the animal to eat. It's healthy for it, so therefore you should allow it to eat. But but in this case, though, this animal is it's not healthy for it to eat this. Or maybe the reason why the Torah says leisachsaim because the chazio mitztara, because the animal is threshing and it sees the food and it's paying for it when you muzzle it and don't allow it to eat. So it's chatzar b'lechaim. That's the main point of this iser. And even in the case where it's not good for the animal to eat, but it still has pain if you prevent it from eating. So maybe the Issa does apply. Rav Sheshes answer, Tanisua, we learned it in the Braisa that we quoted here before. Rav Shimon ben Yechi says, regarding this case where there is no Leisachsaim, but for Maris Ayin, you should place something by the animal that it should eat. And he said, maybe Karshinim v'toilolo. Bring a basket of kashinim, this animal feed, these vegetables that is animal feed, and hang it for it to eat. And he said, why dafka kashinim, not other things? Shar kashinim yofis lo menakol, because this is the kashinim is what is the best the animal enjoys more than other things. So Shema Mino, you clearly see over here is the reason why the Torah says the Isser of Leisachsaim is Shum Demaili Lahu. because it's something that is yofis law, that it's good for the animal, it's the best feed for the animal. Oh, the point here is not the fact that the animal enjoys it more than anything else. Yofis law does not mean the enjoyment of the animal. The yofis law means that it's actually the best animal feed, and that's what you should give it. I mean, you clearly see that that's the main point of the Issa, not the Tzar B'L'chaim aspect, but the fact that it's Mailala, that it's healthy for the animal when it eats. Another Shaila was asked about the Issa of Leisachsaim. Mahu sheyoymar Adam lenachri, is a Yid allowed to say to a guy, Chasoim parasi v'doishba. You can take my cow and you can muzzle it and thresh with it. So here there's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos what the shaila is. According to Rashi, this is talking about when a person is telling a guy to take his cow and you thresh with it, the guy threshes with it his own kernels. That's the shaila of the Gemara. But Tosfos says no, the Gemara doesn't have a shaila in such a case. If the guy himself is threshing his own tfuah, obviously the guy can do whatever he wants and muzzle. The Gemara wouldn't have a shaila about such a thing. The question is, you're asking a guy to use your cow and go thresh you, the yid's tfuah. That's the shaila of the Gemara. So mi amrina, and do we say ki amrina namil nachri shvos? Menatayra this for sure no issa here. But the question is whether the Rabbanan were geyser that this should be aser. So the question is, do I say, when did Chachamim come and say that you're not allowed to tell a guy to do something for you on Isser? That's only Hani Mililin Shabbos. That's on Shabbos. You're not allowed to have a guy do a malacha for you. The Issa Skila, because it's Issa Skila. Chachamim were geyser this. But the Issa lav. But over here, this Issa of muzzling is only a lav. Maybe here Chachamim were not geyser the Issa of Amir al-Nachri. Or maybe there's no difference. The Isser of Amir al-Nachri applies to Issa Skila and applies to Issa Lav as well. So you see over here, this is not just a Shaila when you get to Leisachsim, this is a general Shaila. When you get to the Issa of Amir al-Nachri, whether it's limited only for Shabbos or it applies for other Isurim which are Lavan as well. So Toshema, the Gemara says, I'll bring you a raya from the Brisa we had before. That's it. They were speaking about this case. Nachri Hadash beparasai shel Yisrael, a guy that's threshing with the cow of a Yid. Ein oiver mishum bal tachsin. So the Brisa says you're not going to be over on the lab of bal tachsin. So now, what do you see from the lashon of the Brisa? Mever hu the Brisa uses the expression that you're not over on the lab. The guy is the one that's doing the threshing, so you, the Yid, is not over on the lab. But it's mashma that Isra there will be, it's still not allowed. It's Isra midrabanan. So that means that even in this case, Chachamim were geyser that the Isra of Amir al-Nachri does apply here. So the Gemara says, no, there's no raya from the lashon of this brisa, because bedino the isur namileke. Really, the halach is, and the brisa should have clearly said that there's no isur at all here in this case. But va'aydi the tana seife, because in the next case of the brisa it says the Yisrael hadosh beparasei shel nachri, that a yid that's using a guy's cow to thresh with it, and he muzzles the cow over, that he's going to be over. So there, the point the brisa wants to say is not just that there's an isum with the rabbanon. There it wants to say that you're over menat teira, so tana reisha eina over. So it uses a similar expression in the reisha that when a guy is threshing with your cow and you're muzzling it, he's muzzling it, so then you're not going to be over. But really, you could say that the Brisa meant to say that it's not an Isser at all when the guy is doing it, not even with the Rabbanan either. There's no Isser of Amir al-Nachri. Tashema, the Gemara brings another raya, the Sholchu Lei Lavu, the Shmuel. The question that the Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael sent to the father of Shmuel to ask him the following halacha. Halein Turi, these oxen, the Ganvin are moi, that the goyim they steal it or they take it from the Yidden. Okay, now what this shaila here is going to be talking about is the isser that you're not allowed to be mesaris or behemah. You're not allowed to castrate an animal. And the reason why this would be done is because if you want the animal to work, to plow and do work in the field, it's going to be better. It's going to work better if you're mesaris, if you castrate the animal. But there's a isser minatayra, there's a lav that leisarsa came by artzachem that you're not allowed to do this. So what happened was the Yidden that had goyim, neighbors that were their friends, and they wanted to do them a favor, and they knew that the Yidden are not allowed to do this. So ganven armoy, these armoim, these goyim, they would steal and take these animals from the Yid. Or meganchen yaslainu, they would castrate the animals, and then they would give it back to their friends, the Yidden. So the question is, mahu, what's the halacha with this? Are the Yidden allowed to sort of allow the goyim to do this for them and then take it back and then use it? Shalach lahu. So the father of Shmuel sent back and said, Harame is avid bohu. This is a trick or a subterfuge. Maybe that's the exact translation. They're playing a trick over here, having their friends do it for them. So therefore, no, they're not allowed to use these oxen after it was the Isser was done with them through a goy. So therefore, there's a knas here. And what's the knas? Arimu alayu. You should trick them, these yidden, viz dabnun. And you should force them, you should have them sell these animals, that they should not use themselves, these animals, to do work after this Isser was done with it. So what is the Gemara proving from here? Here we're talking also about a lav. The lav of not being mesadas to animals. And what was done over here? The guy took it and did it for the yid. And the father Shmuel says that because the guy did it for the yid, now it's going to be also for you to use it. We have these yidden should be selling these animals and they shouldn't use it themselves. So we should apply the same thing over here for leisachsayim. That if a guy is doing the chsime, it's also asa. Rav Papa says, no, there's no raya from this case about the Isser of Sirus. The reason is because B'nai Marava, the people there in Eretz Yisrael that had the Shaila Sabri law, they held Rab Chitke, like Rab Chitke's opinion. The Omar, he says, B'nai Noyach mitzuven ala Sirus. That Goyim are also, this Isser applies to Goyim as well. The Ka'avri, Mishum Ulifnei Evil, Sita Michshal. So when the Yidden allow the Goyim to go and take the animal and do this Isser for them, you're being machshal them. You're causing them to stumble on an Isser that the Goy is also not allowed to be Mesadas an animal. This is related to, just like by a Goy, in the Pasuk by Bnei Noach, it says, Pru Revu Milu Sa'aretz, that there's a of Pru Revu regarding themselves, that's also too benegayet to animals. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Rab Chitke held also that this Isser of Sirus, to prevent the animal of giving birth, also applies to them. So therefore this is Isser and Atayra for the guy. So there's no raya to the case that we're talking about over here, which is Isser with the Rabbanon, the Amir al-Nachri that a guy is doing. Okay, so there's no raya from here, but in the conclusion actually, many Rishonim say that even though the Gemara here brings Rab Chitke, but we don't paskin like Rab Chitke, so therefore this is considered to be a raya that Amira L'Nachri does apply not only to the Issa of Shabbos, which is the Issa of Skila, but it also applies to Issa of any other Issa of Lav. The Issa of Amira L'Nachri applies as well. That's how I think most Rishonim paskin based on this raya here the Gemara brings. And like I said before, it's interesting because you have this machlokes of Rashi and Tosfos, and according to Rashi, that even applies when the guy is doing the Issa of Leisachsayim, even with his own Tvua, not only with yours. So the Isra of Amir al-Nachr will apply that far. Now regarding here, this knas that the father of Shmuel said that if you allow a guy to go and take your animal and be mesadas the animal, so you should sell it, and the yid should not then do any work with this animal. Rava thought to say that the knas is yumachru l'shchita. We forced the owner now to sell the animal, and he shouldn't sell it to be used to plow with it, but it should be sold, and you should not use it at all. It should be shechted. Which would mean you would have to sell it at a cheaper price, because if you're selling the animal and you could work with it, it could be used to work, but if you have to shecht it, it'll have to lose money on this sale. So Abaye says, no, the knas doesn't go that far. Dayon shekanasta aleya and mechira. It's enough that the penalty here is that you have to sell these animals, and you can sell it for full price, that it can be used for plowing. Now, who do you sell it to? Pshita, this is obvious. Benoi gadol. If this person has a son that's already a gadol himself, so ki acher dami, that person, he can sell it to his own son, which is a gadol, because that's considered that you're selling it to someone else. And for him, he's allowed to use it to plow. For him, there's no isser. Benoi cotton mai. If you're going to sell it to your own son, that's a cotton, is that already considered that you sold it to someone else, and then you'd be allowed to use it? Ravachi says, no, that's not allowed. It's your son, which is a cotton, he's still living by you. But Ravashi shari. Ravashi said that it's allowed. Now, the Gemara says about this knas here, Mereimer umar zutre, these two amirai, Mereimer and Marzutre, or V'amrila, others say, Hanu trei chasidi, there were two pious individuals, Mechlefi ahadodi, they would exchange their cows or their oxen with one another after this was done, this sirus was done through a guy, so they didn't want to now use it themselves, because you're not allowed to use it yourself, so they would exchange one ox with another. Now, Tosfos clarifies over here, we're not talking about a case where they intentionally allowed a guy to do this isser, and then later they would go and exchange with one another. Then you wouldn't call them chassidim. Why are they called chassidim if they allowed a guy to do the isser for them? A guy went and did it without their awareness, without their knowledge. So then the knas really wouldn't apply. But nevertheless, they were chassidim, and they went and they exchanged their cow with the others. Rami Bachame coming back here to the Isser of Leisachsim, not to muzzle the cow while it's threshing. So Rami Bachame asks the Shaila, Hoishivla kaitz bipiyah. If you place a kaitz, a thorn, into the mouth of the animal, that would prevent it from eating, because every time it eats, it gets poked. So is this also the Isser Mahu? What's the halacha? Is this like muzzling? You're not physically putting a muzzle over its mouth, but is this also included in the Isser of muzzling the cow? So the Gemara asks on this shaila, why should it be a shaila? Ha'ishivla, you place a thorn in its mouth that prevents it from eating. Chasime ma'al yisehi. So your mom is doing something that's preventing the animal of eating. What difference does it make if you're muzzling its mouth or you're putting a thorn in its mouth? Ella, the Gemara says the shaila is yoshavla kaitz b'fiyah. You didn't place the thorn in its mouth. A thorn got stuck in its mouth and now it can't eat. And you're threshing while it has that thorn in its mouth. Mahu, what's going to be the halacha in this case? So Taisus explains, the shaila over here is, the Gemara will soon say that the Iker Isser is that you're threshing with the animal while it's muzzled, while it can't eat. It doesn't matter if you physically muzzled it now, while it's... So the fact that it can't eat, so you shouldn't be allowed to thresh with it. But Taisus says maybe this could be considered to be like an animal that got sick, and therefore it can't eat, like the Gemara mentioned before. So therefore, in this case, the Isser of muzzling does not apply. The fact that the kites got into its mouth, so it's no Isser. Here, bitzlo mibachutz. What if you put a lion standing right outside the place where the animal is threshing? So you have a lion that's standing right there outside that scares the animal of eating. Mahu. What's going to be the halach in such a case? So again, the Gemara clarifies the baya here. Here bitzla, you bring an animal right there outside to lie in front of the cow and to prevent it from eating. Chasim mal yasihi. This is you're muzzling the animal. Right, so even though this is something which is external, it's not in the body of the animal itself, but you're preventing the animal. So this shouldn't be a shaila. Elo, again the Gemara says the shaila is rav atzla arim bachutz. There's a lion that lied down right there outside where this cow is threshing, and therefore it's afraid to eat. Are you allowed to thresh with it? That's the shaila. Another shaila, hemid b'nomi bachutz. If a baby, a child from this animal is sitting right outside in the place where it's threshing, mahu. What's going to be the halacha in this case? The animal is paying attention to its child that's there right outside, so therefore it distracts it and it's not going to end up eating because of this. What's the halacha in such a case? So here the Gemara says Hamid. I'm trying to talk about this, but in our Gemara it says Hamid. Even if you mamish go and put that the child of this animal outside, still there's going to be a shaila because it's not going to completely prevent the animal of eating. It's just not going to eat as much because it's focusing on the bend that's outside. Or another case, the animal was extremely thirsty, so therefore, because of its thirst, it doesn't want to eat. It's looking for water. That's why it's not eating. Or parasla katavlia al gabedisha. Or if you spread out some thin leather sheet over the kernels that it's threshing, so it can't eat from it because of the sheet that you spread over it. What did they call it?
Boiled hide.
A boiled hide, okay, al gabi dishe somahu. What's going to be the halacha in this case? So the Gemara says, let's at least resolve one of the shilas that we asked over here from the following brayse. The Tanya, the brayse says, Rashoy balpare. So if you have a person, he's the owner of the cow, you have someone else that owns the kernels, and the owner of the cow gives his animal or rents out his animal to be used for the threshing. So the Baal Pada, the owner of this cow, is allowed laharif parasai to starve his cow, and then when it does the threshing, it's going to eat a lot from what it threshes. And also, v'rashoy balabayis, on the other hand, the owner of the kernels, he's allowed lahater pekia omer lifnei behemeh, to untie a bundle of hay in front of the animal, so that it does not eat from the threshing a lot. So at this point, the Gemara understands what this means is, what he's doing is, he's untying the bundle of hay and covering the kernels with hay. So as it's threshing the kernels, there's hay on top of it, which is blocking him of eating from the kernels. So you see over here, similar to what we said before, the shaila was regarding spreading over a hide over the kernels to prevent the animal from eating. Over here it says you can spread hay over the kernels to prevent the animal from eating from it. But the Gemara says, no, there's no raya from there. Shani Hassam, in that case, is different. The ka'achla, it could eat a little. Maybe it can't eat as much that it would usually eat. but it still could eat through the hay. It could eat from the kernels, but when you spread over a hide over the kernels, it can't eat at all. So therefore, over there, maybe that's still not allowed. Or the Gemara gives a different answer. The pshat in the Braisa is b'chlal completely different. Rashoy balabayis lahater pekia omer lefnei be'emim meikore. What it means is that the balabas is allowed to give this animal hay to eat before it comes to thresh, instead of having the animal eat from your kernels, which is expensive for you. So feed it hay before it comes to thresh, so it should be full. So it shouldn't eat a lot from the kernels that it's threshing. So it's not the case, b'chlal, that we're talking about over here, that you're spreading the hay over the kernels. You're already feeding it the hay before. Rabbi Yonasan asked Rabbi Simoi the following shaila: Chasma mi bachutz. What's if you muzzle the animal on the outside before it comes into the threshing? Mahu. What's going to be the halacha? And then it comes into the place to thresh, it's already muzzled. Do I say shoyer b'dishay omer achmana? The lashon of the pasuk is loisachsem shoyer. Do not muzzle the ox b'dishay in the threshing, when it's threshing. So over here you already muzzled the cow from before, so it's okay. Or perhaps loy sadush bechasima omer achmana. The kavana of the Torah is when it says loisachsem shoyer b'dishay means it shouldn't be muzzled as it's threshing. So that's even if you muzzled it before, the isser will apply as well. Malay. So Rabbi Simai tells Rabbi Yonasan, Mi beis havicha atolamet. From your father's house, you could learn this answer. What this means is, Rabbi Yonasan was a kohen, and therefore from the halacha that it says by a kohen, you could learn a similar here regarding the halacha of muzzling an ox when it's threshing. What's the issue that it says by a kohen? Yayin v'sheichar al teisht, that he's not allowed to eat wine, or drink, that is. He's not allowed to drink wine when he goes in to do the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. When you enter into the oil moed to do the avodah. So now would you say as follows? Would you say that only b'voyachem, when you come in, you're not allowed to drink wine only once you're inside the Beis HaMikdash, but before, if you want to drink before and then go inside afterwards, it would be allowed. But the Torah says, why shouldn't you drink wine? Because in order to separate between an avodah that's holy and an avodah that's desecrated, when you do the avodah after drinking wine, so that avodah is desecrated. So this a person that's shikir because he drank wine, it doesn't make a difference if he drank before or he drank after. The same issur applies. So you see over there, even though the Torah says b'voyachem, which would sound like that the Isser is only when you entered, but nevertheless, from the reason that it says there, it's understood that the Isser is before as well. So same thing over here. So Ella ma hasam, just like over there, b'shaz biyeh loy tehei shichrus. When it says b'vayachem, what it means to say is, in the time when you enter, you shouldn't be under the influence of the wine that you drank. So hachanami here as well, b'shaz dishe loy tehei chasima. When the Torah says lesachsam shor b'dishe means that in the time when it's threshing, it shouldn't be muzzled. So therefore, even if you muzzle it before, it's also asur. One more thing, the Tanu Rabbanon, it said in the Braise, ha'chaisim esapara, one that muzzles the cow, va'amezaveg b'kilayim, and the one that pairs together two different animals, which is the yisur of kilayim, if they end up then going and plowing together, potter. The one that muzzled, or the one that paired them together, but he didn't take it to thresh. He just muzzled. Or he just paired them, but he didn't take them to actually do the plowing. So he's potter ve'enaloike, he doesn't get any malchus. Eladosh umanik bulvad, the one after it's muzzled, and then he takes it for threshing, even if he didn't muzzle. But as we just learned, that if you're actually threshing with the muzzled cow, you're going to be the one being over this, and the same thing, the one that then takes these two cows, or not two cows, the kalayim, two different animals, and it goes to, you lead it to go do the plowing together, the one that's doing the plowing, he's the one that's going to be over.